Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This day in sports history. Hey, and welcome back to This Dish. It's May 11th, and on this day in 1977, Ted Turner made his Major League managing debut with the Atlanta Braves. It lasted all of one game. The Atlanta Braves were mired in a slump, losers of 16 straight games and last place in the division with an 8-21 record here in 1977. Turner had purchased the Braves in '76 after making his money in advertising and then through radio and television, eventually taking a Georgia television station and turning it into a cable behemoth, WTBS. He would go on to establish CNN in 1979 to become the first 24-hour news channel. His purchase of the Braves and then later the Atlanta Hawks was to have sports programming for WTBS. So, here in the second year of his ownership, and with his team struggling to win games, he told manager Bill Bristol to take a 10-day vacation. Seriously, he did not fire him. He just said, take a few days off. And Turner put on a Braves uniform, stuffed a wad of tobacco in his jaw, walked into the dugout at Pittsburgh's Three Rivers Stadium, and became the manager. He wanted an inside, close-up look at what was going on. Phil Niekro was going to get the start that night against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Prior to the game, Niekro was getting some cuts in the batting cage, and he stepped out and he was waiting to go back in when Turner came up to him dressed in his number 27 Braves uniform. Niekro had gotten wind of what Turner was doing, and so he asked him, "Hey Skip, where you got me hitting tonight?" To which Turner replied, "Hell, you want to lead off? You want to hit second or third? We just lost 16 in a row. You've been around here long enough. Hit wherever you want to." Well, Niekro laughed at that, and then he said, "Ted, you should put me in the 9th spot." Turner was actually relying more on third base coach Vern Benson for help. Turner had the final word, but Benson was in essence the manager for the night. But really, there weren't a whole lot of decisions to be made. Although down 2-1 in the 9th and a man on first, Turner made a bit of an off-the-cuff move, calling for Darrell Chaney to pinch hit. Chaney was a switch hitter, but he says he had never been asked to pinch hit from the right side before. But he stepped in against the left-hander John Candelaria, and he crushed a ball to deep center that bounced off the hard AstroTurf and went over the wall for a ground rule double. Instead of the runner scoring from first had it stayed in the park, he was called back to third, and the Candyman took care of the rest of the Braves to preserve the 2-1 Pirates win for the 17th straight Braves loss. After the game, National League President Chub Feeney, with the backing of Commissioner Bowie Kuhn, told Turner it was against the rules to manage his club, citing a rule that anyone who owned stock in a team was forbidden to do so. Vern Benson managed the next game, and the Braves actually won. Bristol was brought back in to manage the rest of the way, so much for that 10-day vacation, and the Braves went on to lose 101 games that year. Also on this day in 1919, it was a famous pitcher's duel at the old Polo Grounds in New York. It was the Washington Senators playing in New York against the Yankees on a Sunday afternoon. The Yankees were anticipating a large crowd on this day. You see, less than a month prior, on April 19th, New York Governor Al Smith legalized Sunday baseball games. Prior to that, it was illegal to play a professional ball game on the Sabbath. This was the first Sunday game for the Yankees and just the second Sunday game in the city after the Giants played on Sunday the week before. And since the Giants had sold out the Polo Grounds 7 days earlier, the Yankees figured the novelty would still be fresh. Side note, the Giants and Yankees shared the Polo Grounds through the 1922 season. Yankee Stadium opened in '23. But the weather on this day was not cooperating. It was rainy, it was cold, and the game was delayed more than an hour until the teams could make a decision whether to play the game or not. At 3:30 p.m., they said play ball, allowing Yankees starter and legal spitballer Jack Quinn to take the hill. Pitching for the Senators on this day was Walter Johnson. Johnson gave up a hit in the bottom of the first, and that was pretty much it for the Yankee bats. Johnson retired the next 26 batters. While the Senators' bats weren't quiet, they couldn't engineer a run either, and so the game went to extra innings with the game scoreless. Johnson sat down the first two Yankees in the 10th for 28 straight retired. He walked the next man to break the streak. So in essence, Johnson pitched the equivalent of a perfect game, and then some. And here's another interesting tidbit for this game. George Halas, the future Chicago Bears football coach, well, he was playing for the Yankees at this point, and after he was retired in the 12th, home plate umpire Bill Dineen called both managers to home plate for a meeting. Dineen was under the impression that there was a 6 p.m. curfew for Sunday ball games, though there actually was not, despite pleas from both managers to keep going and the fact there was plenty of light still left. With the game approaching 6 p.m., he called it, and it was deemed a tie. The Senators had to be punching themselves after this one. They had 17 base runners throughout the 12 innings, but got picked off, caught stealing, caught up in a double play, and just plain didn't run the bases very well. For Johnson, even though he pitched well enough to pick up a win, this obviously was not one of his 417 wins that he had in his career. He's second on the all-time wins list in Major League Baseball. But it did count as one of his Major League record 110 shutouts. And one final note. I didn't know before researching this story that George Halas actually played professional baseball, let alone played for the Yankees. Well, it turns out the future Football Hall of Famer and coaching legend played just 12 games for the New York Yankees in the 1919 season before a hip injury ended his baseball career. And so now, for this next story, I want you to pause what you're doing and close your eyes. Unless you're driving. Definitely keep your eyes open if you're driving, but take a moment to visualize something. When I say that move by Dr. J, that signature move of his, what comes to your mind? Well, I'm guessing you are remembering the baseline scoop move where he got the ball on the right wing, drove to the basket only to see two Los Angeles Lakers big men collapsing on him, blocking his path to the rim, but still taking flight with the ball dwarfed in his large right hand, gliding behind the backboard, defying gravity as few men have ever done, windmilling the ball to the other side of the rim for a reverse layup off the glass. Yeah, that one. Well, that happened on this day in 1980 in Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Rookie Magic Johnson was on the bench taking a breather and had a front row seat look at it. He said 25 years later that it was, and still is, the greatest move he has ever witnessed in basketball. Philadelphia went on to win the game 105-102 to even the series at 2 games apiece. And a couple of quick notes. In 1982, the USFL made the official announcement that it would begin playing professional football in the spring of '83. And in 1893, Frenchman Henri DesGrange set the first world cycling hour record. Now, if you are not familiar with this particular event, this is a one-person ride against the clock on a velodrome track, so banked turns, no drafting, man and machine seeing how far they can go in 60 minutes. Well, Henri pedaled 21.95 miles in an hour on this day to set the standard. He would go on to found the Tour de France 10 years later, with the first iteration in 1903. And time now for today's non-sports Did You Know? In Oklahoma, it is illegal to wrestle a bear, for fun. If you're attacked by a bear, then you are free to wrestle it without fear of a fine or incarceration. But at that point, you're probably thinking about other things. Anyway, that's all for today. I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.